to the Jim Thorpe Area Stadium. We're here for week 2 of the Times News Grid Pick Rundown. I'm Justin Carlucci alongside Patrick Matsinko, and the Olympians are practicing in the background here. Patrick, last week, a lot of craziness in the Times News coverage area in week 1.
Always hard to predict the first week of the season. I think as we get a little bit further into the year, you get a better idea of where our teams stand. But week 1 is always probably the most unpredictable of the entire year.
We saw a lot of crazy things happen across the Schuylkill Football League. 2 teams opened their season with an opening kickoff return for a touchdown. North Schuylkill and Tamaqua. I thought that was pretty cool. We had a lot of local winners. We had an overtime game in Marion and Penns Valley. And we had a Lehighton Fleetwood game that went right down to the wire as well.
And again, I mean, those are teams that are all plugging in new players. And you have a lot of new faces on the roster this year. And those coaches are looking for those kids to step up. And you saw Lehighton make a late comeback and they knock off Fleetwood. And you see Marion battle back and they take Penns Valley into overtime. And Marion comes away with the win. So I think Coach McCarroll and Coach DeCoste have to both be happy with what they saw out of their teams in week 1.
We also saw a couple of PV schools do big things on week 1. Panther Valley getting a big non-league win over Columbia Montour Vote Tech. That's the first season opener they've won in a couple of years. And Pleasant Valley, the last couple of years, had that grueling opening 3-week stretch, got a nice victory against Nazareth in week 1.
And again, for first-year head coach Mark Bursick, you know that's huge. I mean, they've struggled with teams from, kind of out of the area in the EPC South against the Beccas and the Whitehalls in the East. And this year they open up with Nazareth. And they showed that offense is ready to compete, and they were able to put up some points, and I think that should certainly bode well for the rest of the year for the Bears.
Well, Marion and Jim Thorpe is our game of the week, so make sure you check out that video and check out the story in the Thursday's edition of the Times News. So without further ado, Pat, let's get right on with the Week 2 Grid Pick Rundown. Panther Valley at Hamburg. Who do you like in this one?
Again, a lot of unknowns with this one. I mean, week 2, the Panthers have a lot of momentum coming off of week 1, but I'm gonna stick with the Panthers for week 2. And head coach Matt Davis, I mean, it'd be huge for that program to start 2-0.
Well, it's another non-league game for the Panthers, and I think they have a great opportunity to kick off the season 2-0. I don't know much about Hamburg. I know they scrimmage a couple local teams here and there. I think it's usually Tamaqua.
I believe so. Right.
But I like what Panther Valley is doing. I like how all the pieces are in the right place, as I said, for the season. And I like Hunter Kennedy played very well, and Figueroa was going in the run game, going Panthers week. Let's move down the list here. Pleasant Valley is at Central Catholic, and like we just said, big week 1 win, another tough EPC opponent in Central Catholic, and now that's a road game for Pleasant Valley, Patrick. So talk to me about this one.
Saturday night, prime time, J. Bernie Crum Stadium in Allentown. I mean, Central Catholic, again, was picked to be one of the top teams in the EPC, but they faltered last week against a very tough Freedom team. And again, Pleasant Valley's coming off of a big week 1 win. I'm gonna ride the momentum until it stops. I'm gonna go with the Bears in week 2.
Yeah, I like what I saw at a Pleasant Valley in Central Catholic. I don't know. They weren't the same Central Catholic as last year. They had a great season last season. I like Brandon Keys at the helm in Pleasant Valley. I think sky's the limit with Pleasant Valley. I'm going with the Bears in week 2. Tamaqua and Mahanoy area. Last week, Tamaqua looked really sharp, came out, really brought it to them, and personally, I think we're going to see that same kind of effort against Mahanoy area, although it's on the road. Nick Briner, someone who didn't have a ton of playing time the last couple of seasons, looked fantastic last week, so I'm going with Tamaqua.
And I think that's a kid that's a prime example of someone who's had to wait his turn behind Bud Moyer, who was a stalwart tailback for the Blue Raiders, and he showed what he could do. And again, I think they showed that they could maybe have a really dynamic offense with Dad Zuber this year at quarterback. So it seems like it's all coming together for head coach Sam Bonner. I'm going to have to go with the Blue Raiders.
Lehighton and Schuylkill Haven. That's game number 2 at Lehighton's new venue. And Schuylkill Haven coming off a win against Jim Thorpe last week. Schuylkill Haven, a lot of coaches and media tagged as the favorite in Division 2 in the polls. Another tough test for Lehighton. Last week they got a real slim win against Fleetwood, a team that we didn't know much about either. And like we said, Lehighton, a lot of new faces on each side of the ball this season. Cody Scherer had a huge week, our Times News Player of the Week. But talk to me about Lehighton and Schuylkill Haven, Pat.
And you saw a little bit, I think, of why people pegged Haven as one of the top teams in the Schuylkill Football League. A very potent running game. They were able to have quite a bit of success against Jim Thorpe. I mean, the Olympians were in the game, but they showed why they should have some success this year. But Lehighton showed a lot of heart, a lot of grit to come back in that game. Late stops, to be able to kind of get the ball back, put the score, put them ahead. It's going to be tough. I mean, it's only week 2, but it almost already looks like one of the biggest games of the year. Indians at home, undefeated in the new stadium. I say it stays that way. I say the Indians go 2-0.
Schuylkill Haven. This is Schuylkill Haven football. They only threw the ball twice last week, I believe, and that's what they're notorious for. They are the breed of Schuylkill Football League. They are north-south, right down your throat kind of football. I'm actually covering that game, so I'm going to go ahead and defer that pick. But here's our editor, Emmett McCall, to give his opinion on what's going to happen this Friday night.
Thanks, Justin and Pat. I'm hoping to give you fans out there a little preview of how I think the Lehighton and Schuylkill Haven game is going to go Friday night. Pair of Schuylkill League teams, really good matchup I think we have here. Schuylkill Haven likes to run. They're going to try to impose their will on the other team, grind it out, power football. Lehighton, at least last week in their opener, they showed they like to put the ball in the air, threw for 315 yards. 2 different receivers, Mike Myernick and Gavin Zahner, both had over 100 yards receiving. So I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the difference here could be Lehighton coach Tom McCarroll. He's a bit of a gambler. He likes to go for it on 4th down. He likes to try some different things. I think against the team as good as Schuylkill Haven, Lehighton's going to have to pull out all stops and take some gambles. And I think the difference could be a 4th down conversion, a trick play, something like that helps Lehighton. I see the game coming out 28-27, Lehighton coming down to the last minute again, maybe.
And that's Emmett McCall, our editor at the Times News, does a great job with us here, and that's what he had to say about the Lehighton and Schuylkill Haven matchup. So we can just keep moving on, Patrick, right down the line here. A Colonial League battle, Northern Lehigh and Catasauqua.
That's a tough one. Caddy came up short against Salisbury last week, but the Rough Riders, they moved the ball. They had over 500 yards of total offense, but a number of turnovers. They shot themselves in the foot with turnovers, much like Northern Lehigh did in week 1 against Southern Lehigh. I think ball control and kind of minimizing those mistakes is going to be huge. But the Rough Riders showed that they're able to move the football, and I'm going to have to go with Caddy in this one.
Are we ever going to disagree? I think Caddy has just enough firepower, and like you said, you pretty much took the words right out of my mouth. I think it's going to be a good game. I think you're going to see a really good Colonial League game. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if I'm wrong. I'll probably be wrong, but I'm going to go with the Roughies in this one too.
It's early.
It's early. Southern Lehigh and Palmerton. Palmerton was in our game of the week last week with Northwestern. Northwestern squeaked by in that one. It was a really good game. Came down to the wire.
Northwestern came away with a 13-12 win. Late drive, freshman quarterback, puts them ahead, and then they get a big defensive stop late in the game. The Tigers came out and they pulled out a close one, but Palmerton was in it. Southern Lehigh, though, showed, again, why it's had a potent offense and why it's been a contender in the Colonial League last week against Northern Lehigh, and they were able to put up over 40 points. That's got to be something that you're worried about if maybe you're not able to match them score for score. And right now, I don't know if Palmerton is. The Spartans look like they have things humming early on, and I'm going to have to go with Southern Lehigh in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to be with you with Southern Lehigh. A lot of firepower, a lot of personnel turnover in Southern Lehigh as well, but it seems like they're picking up right where they left off at the end of last year. So until Southern Lehigh can prove me otherwise, I'm going to have to stick with them as well. Lastly on the slate is Northwestern at Salisbury, Pat.
That's got to be as much as you could want to see from your team in a week 1 game where you have a freshman quarterback in Devin Ballinger like the Tigers did, and he threw 2 picks, stayed composed, threw for over 200 yards, and did enough. And, they had a Phil D'Angelo who was able to come in a Wildcat situation and punch in the game-winning score. I'm going to have to say that Josh Snyder will have his kids ready to play against Salisbury, and I'm going to have to go with Northwestern.
Yeah, I'm rolling with Northwestern, too. They have a great wide receiver outside. Freshman quarterback got his feet wet in week 1. He didn't have some success early, but still stuck with it and had a very nice game. And, that's his first ever varsity start. So I'm like to see how much better he can get week in and week out. I like Northwestern this week, too. And Patrick, just a reminder, those were our local grid pick selections, so you have to pick up the Friday edition of the Times News to see the rest of everybody's pick for week 2. And we'll have somebody different from our staff writing the grid pick column every week. This week it's TJ Engel.
TJ Engel always does a great job, very passionate about the game and what he does, and I'm sure he'll be able to provide some different insight into all the games, local and non-local. So be sure to pick up a copy of Friday's paper to see his predictions, and then to see what the rest of our staff pick.
Yep, make sure you check out our Facebook, our Twitter, and pick up Saturday's edition of the Times News for complete game stories from our entire local coverage area, as well as all the box scores. Anything else, Pat, before we get out of here?
I think we're good. I think we'll let the Olympians keep preparing for Marion, and we'll see you next week.
Well, for Patrick Matsinko, I'm Justin Carlucci, right here from the beautiful Jim Thorpe Area Stadium.